Millionaire made surprise hospital inspection, found crying twins outside room 307. Their eyes told his story. What this millionaire discovered during a routine hospital visit changed his life forever. Like this video and subscribe to follow the heartwarming journey of a cold businessman who finds unexpected family in the most unlikely place. Comment below if you've ever experienced a moment that completely changed your perspective on what truly matters in life. The sleek black Bentley seemed out of place in the modest parking lot of Cedar Grove Community Hospital. Jonathan Mercer adjusted his custom-tailored suit jacket as he stepped out, surveying the weathered brick building with a critical eye. At 42, he'd built Mercer Technologies into a billion-dollar enterprise through hard work and unsentimental business decisions. This rural hospital was simply his latest acquisition, another underperforming asset to optimize. "Mr. Mercer, we weren't expecting you until next month," stammered the woman hurrying down the front steps. Her lab coat was pristine, but her sensible shoes and lack of designer accessories spoke volumes to Jonathan's discerning eye. "Dr. Martin, I presume?" Jonathan extended his hand briefly. "I prefer unannounced inspections. They reveal the truth of daily operations, not what you've prepared for me to see." Dr. Jessie Martin's smile faltered slightly, but she recovered quickly. "Of course, we're happy to show you everything. We're quite proud of what we accomplish here, despite our limited resources." Jonathan merely nodded, already noting the chipped paint on the entrance columns and the outdated signage. The light drizzle of rain seemed fitting for this dreary Tuesday morning as they entered the building. Inside, the fluorescent lighting revealed worn but meticulously clean floors. The reception area buzzed with activity, patients greeting each other by name, staff moving with purpose despite the dated equipment surrounding them. "Morning, Dr. Jessie. Those vitamins you recommended are working wonders for my arthritis," called an elderly man, tipping his worn cap. "Good to hear, Mr. Johnson. Don't forget your follow-up next week," she replied warmly before turning back to Jonathan. "Shall we start with the emergency department?" Jonathan pulled out his tablet, making notes as they walked. "Your emergency services show consistent losses quarter over quarter," he remarked coldly. "The equipment is at least a decade old." "But essential to this community," Dr. Martin countered. "The nearest other emergency room is over an hour away. When someone has a heart attack or a farming accident, that hour makes the difference between life and death." "Yes, I've heard that particular talking point before," Jonathan interrupted. "But emotional appeals don't balance budgets, Doctor." Nurse Thompson, a silver-haired veteran of 30 years according to the introduction Dr. Martin had made, approached with a chart. "Dr. Martin, the Parker case. His condition has stabilized, but the cardiologist is recommending—" She stopped abruptly, noticing Jonathan. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt." "The Parker admission, is that Walter Parker in 307? Dr. Martin asked, concern evident in her voice. "Yes, the twins are still outside his room. I've offered the playroom, but they refuse to leave the hallway." Jonathan's impatient sigh was audible. Children in hospitals were an emotional complication he preferred to avoid during inspections. "Shall we continue to radiology?" he suggested. "Of course. Just one moment." Dr. Martin touched Nurse Thompson's arm. "Make sure the twins have something to eat, will you? They've been here since dawn." As they continued down the corridor, Jonathan noted more inefficiencies, outdated computer systems, staff performing multiple roles, a physical therapy room that could be repurposed for more profitable services. Each observation was another point in favor of his original assessment. This hospital needed significant downsizing to be viable. "The radiology department is just past this," Dr. Martin began, but Jonathan had stopped walking. Outside room 307, two small figures huddled together on a worn bench. A girl, her copper hair falling over a sketchbook, looked up as they approached. Beside her, a boy of the same age clutched a backpack to his chest, like armor against the world. Both had tear-streaked faces and the exhausted look of children, trying desperately to be brave. It was the girl's eyes that caught Jonathan off guard, hazel with distinctive flecks of amber that seemed to catch the light. Something about them triggered an unexpected jolt of recognition. "Those are the Parker twins," Dr. Martin said softly. "Their grandfather is our cardiac patient. He's their only remaining family." The girl quickly looked away, leaning closer to her brother, who put a protective arm around her shoulders. Jonathan found himself staring, an unfamiliar sensation spreading through his chest. "Mr. Mercer, shall we continue?" Dr. Martin prompted. "Those eyes," Jonathan murmured, more to himself than to his guide. The tablet in his hand seemed suddenly inconsequential. "I'm sorry," Jonathan straightened, forcing his professional mask back into place. "Nothing." "Yes, let's continue." As they walked away, he found himself glancing back at the children, a strange uneasiness growing inside him. But that's impossible, he thought. Sarah's been gone for years. The rest of the inspection passed in a blur, his notes increasingly disjointed as his mind kept returning to those amber-flecked eyes he hadn't seen since his sister walked out of his life 7 years ago. The hospital corridor outside room 307 is quiet except for the steady beeping of monitors from within. The faded blue chairs have molded to their small forms after hours of waiting. A nurse's station sits at the end of the hall, staff occasionally glancing sympathetically toward the children. Emma looks up from her sketchbook, her amber-flecked eyes thoughtful. He seems sad, I think, like Grandpa when he looks at Mom's pictures. She returns to her drawing, a detailed sketch of her grandfather, surrounded by protective angels, her 9-year-old hand surprisingly skilled. "I don't trust him," Ethan declares, his jaw set in the same determined way as the grandfather fighting for his life behind the door beside them. "He's probably just here to close the hospital. That's what Mrs. Wilson at the diner said might happen." Their conversation halts as Dr. Chen approaches, clipboard in hand. The cardiologist's kind face shows the careful neutrality that adults adopt when delivering complicated news to children. "Your grandfather is stable now," she tells them, crouching to their level. "The medication is helping his heart work better, but we need to monitor him closely." "When can he come home?" Ethan asks, always practical, always planning their next steps. Dr. Chen hesitates. "Not for a while yet. His heart needs time to recover." Emma's pencil stills. "But who will take care of us?" The question hangs in the air, heavy with implications neither child fully grasps, but both instinctively fear. Before Dr. Chen can answer, footsteps approach. Jonathan Mercer returns, his expression carefully composed, yet somehow different from earlier, less dismissive, more searching. "I'd like to speak with these children briefly," he tells Dr. Chen. "Hospital policy regarding unaccompanied minors," he adds, the lie flowing smoothly. Dr. Chen looks skeptical, but nods. "I need to check on other patients. Nurse Thompson will be at the station if you need anything," she tells the twins before leaving. Jonathan sits carefully on the bench beside them, maintaining a respectful distance. "My name is Jonathan Mercer. I own this hospital." "Are you going to close it?" Ethan challenges immediately. "Because then Grandpa would have to go really far away and we couldn't visit him." A flicker of surprise crosses Jonathan's face. "I'm reviewing all options," he says diplomatically, then gestures to Emma's sketchbook. "You're quite talented. May I see?" Emma hesitates, then cautiously turns the sketchbook toward him. Jonathan studies the drawing, noting details that stir uncomfortable memories. The way she shades, the particular attention to eyes, so similar to Sarah's art school sketches he'd once proudly displayed in his first apartment. "Your grandfather is Walter Parker?" he asks, his voice carefully neutral. Ethan nods warily. "He's a carpenter. He built half the porches in Cedar Grove." "And your parents?" Jonathan asks, though he suspects the answer already. The twins exchange glances, that silent communication unique to twins. "They died in a car accident 2 years ago," Emma says quietly, unconsciously rubbing the small birthmark on her wrist, a crescent-shaped mark identical to Sarah's. Jonathan's gaze fixes on the birthmark, his composed exterior cracking slightly. "Your mother, was her name Sarah?" The children stiffen simultaneously. "How did you know that?" Ethan demands. "Just a guess," Jonathan manages, rising abruptly. "Excuse me." He walks quickly to the stairwell, pulling out his phone once the door closes behind him. His hands shake slightly as he dials. "Rebecca, I need everything you can find on Sarah Mercer Parker in Cedar Grove. Family information, specifically children." His voice echoes in the empty stairwell. "And send me the contents of the storage unit with Sarah's belongings. Everything. Tonight." "Sir?" His assistant sounds confused. "Your sister Sarah?" "I thought, just do it." He cuts her off, leaning against the wall. "And clear my schedule. I'm staying in Cedar Grove indefinitely." After ending the call, Jonathan pulls up a photo on his phone, Sarah and himself at her college graduation, before the argument that divided them. Her eyes, with those distinctive amber flecks, smile back at him. Eyes now replicated in a young girl sitting outside room 307. His phone pings with an incoming message. "Rebecca has sent preliminary information already. Marriage record for Sarah Mercer to Thomas Parker, birth certificates for twins Emma and Ethan Parker, death certificates for both Sarah and Thomas from a car accident 2 years prior." Sarah had children. My sister had children, and I never knew, Jonathan whispers, sliding down to sit on the stairs. The cold, calculating businessman finds himself overwhelmed by emotions he's spent years suppressing. In the silence of the stairwell, far from the corporate boardrooms where he typically dominates, Jonathan confronts an uncomfortable truth. He has family he never knew existed, right here in this struggling hospital he was planning to gut. His phone rings again, Marcus from the board, no doubt demanding updates on the planned cuts. Jonathan silences it without a second thought, his mind already racing with new, unexpected possibilities that have nothing to do with profit margins or quarterly reports. Jonathan quickly locks his screen, but not before Dr. Martin glimpses a young woman with a striking resemblance to Emma Parker. "Just reviewing some personal matters," he replies, his customary briskness softened by distraction. The cafeteria is quiet at this hour, serving weak coffee and packaged muffins to early shift nurses. Outside, the rain has settled into a gentle mist that shrouds the green hills beyond the parking lot. "Walter Parker's condition has improved overnight," Dr. Martin offers, setting down her coffee. "The treatment protocol seems to be working." Jonathan nods, his mind clearly elsewhere. His grandchildren, the twins, how are they managing? As well as can be expected. Mrs. Abernathy, our social worker, has been checking in on them. They're staying with a neighbor for now, but if Walter's recovery takes longer... She trails off, the implication clear. "I see." Jonathan's phone buzzes with another message from Rebecca, his assistant. More files recovered from storage. Sarah's college sketchbooks, family photographs, letters never sent. And Mr. Parker's prognosis? Guardedly optimistic, but he needs specialized care we're not equipped to provide. Normally we'd transfer him to regional medical center in the city, but that would separate him from the children, Jonathan finishes, surprising Dr. Martin with his insight. His phone pings again with a message that makes him sit straighter. DNA records from Sarah's medical files confirm beyond doubt what he already knew. Emma and Ethan are his biological niece and nephew. "Dr. Martin," Jonathan says suddenly, "what if you had access to a specialist? Could Mr. Parker receive adequate treatment here?" Her eyebrows rise. "Theoretically, yes, but our budget doesn't—" "I'll handle it," Jonathan interrupts, already dialing. "Dr. Lawrence Keller, please. Tell him it's Jonathan Mercer." He steps away from the table, speaking rapidly into the phone about flying in a cardiac specialist and equipment. When he returns, Dr. Martin is watching him with undisguised curiosity. "That was unusually generous, Mr. Mercer, especially given your reputation." Jonathan straightens his tie, uncomfortable with her scrutiny. "It's more cost-effective than transferring the patient," he says, reverting to business language like protective armor. "A pilot program for rural cardiac care. Very cutting edge." Dr. Martin clearly doesn't believe this explanation, but knows better than to challenge it. "The Parker family will be grateful, regardless of your motivations." Later that afternoon, Jonathan watches from a discreet distance as Dr. Martin informs the twins that their grandfather will receive special treatment from a renowned heart specialist. The relief, blooming on their exhausted faces, triggers an unfamiliar warmth in his chest. "Who's paying for it?" Ethan asks immediately, always practical beyond his years. "Grandpa says hospitals cost more than houses." "An anonymous donor," Dr. Martin explains, her eyes briefly finding Jonathan at the end of the corridor before returning to the children. Emma's gaze follows Dr. Martin's, studying Jonathan with a thoughtfulness that reminds him so painfully of Sarah. She offers a small, hesitant wave, which he awkwardly returns. As the children go into their grandfather's room to share the news, Mrs. Abernathy approaches Jonathan. "Mr. Mercer, I'm the hospital's social worker. I understand you've taken a special interest in the Parker case." Jonathan maintains his professional demeanor. The hospital is conducting a case study on comprehensive family care. Mrs. Abernathy's experienced eyes see through this. "Of course. I should mention that Walter Parker is their legal guardian, but their financial situation is challenging. The medical bills were already straining their resources before this hospitalization." This information settles uncomfortably on Jonathan's conscience. His sister's children living on the financial edge while he manages billions in assets. "I'll have my foundation look into assistance programs," he says neutrally, though he's already determined to handle the bills himself. As evening approaches, Jonathan returns to his luxury hotel on the edge of town, the only accommodation in Cedar Grove that meets his usual standards. Yet, as he drives through the small town Sarah chose as her home, he finds himself slowing near a modest two-story house with a handmade swing on the porch. The Parker home, he recognizes it from photos Rebecca sent. Lights glow warmly from within. A bicycle leans against the porch railing. A wind chime, one he remembers Sarah making in college, hangs by the door. "I can help them without getting involved," Jonathan tells himself as he accelerates past. But even as he says it, he knows it's a lie. The image of Emma's amber-flecked eyes, so like Sarah's, follows him to his empty hotel room. That night, instead of reviewing quarterly reports, Jonathan loses himself in recovered photographs of Sarah's life. Her wedding to Thomas Parker, her pregnancy, the twins as infants. The sister he fought with over their family business, who walked away rather than compromise her principles, had built a modest but joy-filled life here without him. He falls asleep with his phone in his hand, open to a photo of newborn Emma and Ethan cradled in Sarah's arms, her face glowing with a happiness he had never been part of. The Morning Glory Diner sits at the heart of Main Street, its windows overlooking the town square where the farmers market is setting up. Pickup trucks unload fresh produce, handmade crafts, and local honey as the community gathers for its weekly ritual. "My business here is taking longer than anticipated," Jonathan replies, scanning the laminated menu with its handwritten daily specials. "Heard you're bringing in some fancy heart doctor for old Walter Parker," Mary says, pouring coffee without being asked. Not something folks expected from the man rumored to be shutting us down. Jonathan looks up sharply. News travels fast. Mary chuckles. "Honey, in Cedar Grove, news doesn't travel. It arrives before the event happens." She leans in conspiratorially. "Those twins are special. Whole town's helped raise them since Sarah and Tom passed." The casual mention of his sister's name stirs something in Jonathan. "You knew Sarah?" Everyone knew Sarah Parker. Taught art at the school, volunteered everywhere, made the best strawberry pies for the summer festival. Mary studies Jonathan more carefully. "You know, now that I look at you proper, there's something familiar about your eyes." Jonathan is saved from responding by the arrival of Tom Wilson, the local high school principal, who does a double-take upon seeing him. "Mr. Mercer, didn't expect to see you at Mary's. Usually visiting executives stick to hotel restaurants." He extends his hand. "Tom Wilson. I run the high school where Sarah taught art part-time." Jonathan shakes his hand, noticing how everyone uses his sister's name with easy familiarity. "You worked with Sarah?" "For years. Best art teacher we ever had." Tom slides into the booth uninvited. "Those kids of hers have her talent, especially Emma. Could draw before she could write properly." As Jonathan eats breakfast, the diner gradually fills with locals, many casting curious glances his way. Several approach to introduce themselves, each somehow working Sarah into the conversation. The mail carrier, who delivered to the Parker house daily. The librarian who hosted reading hours the twins attended. A local farmer, whose barn Sarah had helped paint for their wedding. "You're looking at the accounts all wrong," says Eleanor Jenkins, the retired bank manager who stops by his table. "That hospital might not show profits on paper, but it saved my grandson's life last year when he had an allergic reaction. Can't put a number on that, young man." By mid-morning, Jonathan finds himself walking the town square, seeing Cedar Grove through new eyes. Not as a financially underperforming investment, but as the community his sister had chosen over the wealthy circles he inhabited. He pauses at a small art gallery displaying local work. In the window hangs a watercolor of the town square at sunrise, the signature in the corner catching his eye, S. Parker. "That's one of Sarah's last pieces," says a voice beside him. Tom Wilson has fallen into step with him again. The gallery keeps a permanent collection of her work. Inside, Jonathan finds a corner dedicated to his sister's art, landscapes, portraits of local residents, and several paintings of the twins as toddlers. The style is unmistakably Sarah's, evolved and matured from the sketches he remembered. "She talked about you sometimes," Tom says quietly, watching Jonathan study the artwork. "Her brilliant brother who built an empire." Jonathan's head snaps up. "She spoke about me? I thought that she was angry." Tom shakes his head. "Sarah wasn't one to hold grudges. She was sad about losing touch with you. Said you two were close once before money complicated things." "We were," Jonathan admits, memories flooding back, teaching Sarah to ride a bike, defending her from bullies, celebrating when she got into art school, before their parents died and the family business divided them. "She always believed you two would reconcile someday," Tom continues, "kept newspaper clippings about your success. The twins know they have an uncle, though they've never met you." This revelation hits Jonathan harder than expected. All this time, Sarah had kept him present in her life, while he had buried thoughts of her beneath work and ambition. His next stop is the elementary school where Sarah taught. The principal, eager to impress the hospital owner, gives him a tour that inevitably leads to a hallway mural, a whimsical scene of children playing near a lake. "Sarah painted this 5 years ago," the principal explains proudly. Jonathan stares at the landscape, recognizing it instantly. The lake house where they spent childhood summers, rendered with perfect detail down to the distinctive curved dock their father had built. In the corner, nearly hidden among the playing children, two small figures sit side by side on the dock, a boy and girl, clearly meant to be Sarah and himself as children. By late afternoon, Jonathan sits alone on a park bench, watching as Emma and Ethan cross the green with an elderly neighbor. The children don't notice him, absorbed in their own conversation, Ethan gesturing animatedly while Emma listens. His phone rings, Rebecca, his assistant, concerned about his schedule. "The board needs confirmation about your return flight tomorrow." "Cancel it," Jonathan says, his eyes still on the twins. "I need more time." "But, sir, the Singapore merger—" "Can wait," he interrupts, making a decision that would have been unthinkable yesterday. "I'm staying in Cedar Grove for now." Marcus Denton, the company's aggressive CFO, doesn't bother hiding his impatience. The Q3 projections assumed significant cuts at these rural acquisitions. The other board members are questioning your delay. Jonathan's luxury suite feels increasingly disconnected from the community he's been exploring. Spread across the king-size bed are hospital staffing charts and budget reports he's been studying, not for cuts, but for potential improvements. "I'm conducting a more thorough analysis," Jonathan replies, his attention drawn to the photograph he's propped against the lamp, Sarah and the twins at a town festival, their faces painted like butterflies. Rebecca had unearthed it from his storage unit, along with a box of Sarah's possessions he'd kept but never examined after their estrangement. "Analysis," Marcus scoffs. "The numbers are clear. That facility bleeds money on unnecessary services. The property alone is worth more than the operating business." Jonathan pinches the bridge of his nose. Just days ago, he would have agreed without hesitation. "I'll have my recommendations soon. That's all for now, Marcus." He ends the call before his CFO can object further. A knock at the door signals the arrival of coffee he'd ordered. As the hotel staff sets up the tray, Jonathan catches a glimpse of his reflection in the mirror. Designer suit, replaced by a simple button-down shirt, his usually perfect hair slightly disheveled from running his hands through it repeatedly. Even his posture has changed, the rigid corporate stance softening. An hour later, Jonathan walks the hospital corridors with new purpose. Where previously he'd seen outdated equipment and inefficiency, he now notices dedicated staff working double shifts to cover shortages, patients greeting each other like family, Dr. Martin managing crises with calm competence. "Show me the emergency services again," he requests, surprising Dr. Martin, who had been bracing for closure announcements. In the emergency department, she demonstrates their limitations. Equipment from the previous decade, limited diagnostic capabilities, workarounds the staff have developed to compensate. "This ultrasound machine," Jonathan says, examining the dated equipment. "It's completely inadequate." Dr. Martin sighs. "We've requested replacements for 3 years, but we make do." "Order a new one," Jonathan interrupts. "The latest model, and upgrade the cardiac monitoring system while you're at it." Dr. Martin stares. "I don't understand. Yesterday you were documenting our inefficiencies, and today I'm seeing potential," Jonathan finishes, surprising himself with the genuine conviction in his voice. "This hospital matters to this community. To people He stops himself before saying, "care about." The hospital administrator approaches nervously, clutching budget projections. "Mr. Mercer, about these equipment approvals. They're not in our quarterly budget." "Bill my office directly," Jonathan says with a dismissive wave. "Consider it a pilot program." Later, in a conference room commandeered as his temporary office, Jonathan connects to a video call with his executive board. The modern laptop looks out of place on the worn table, like his designer watch against his increasingly casual attire. "Jonathan, what's going on?" demands Elaine Voss, a board member of 20 years. "Marcus says you're approving unplanned expenditures at that backwater hospital." "Cedar Grove Memorial serves a vital function," Jonathan begins, using language that would have seemed foreign to him a week ago. "I believe we've been approaching these rural acquisitions incorrectly. There's potential for a new model focused on community integration rather than mere profitability." The faces on his screen exchange concerned glances. "Have you run the numbers on this community model?" Marcus asks, sarcasm evident. "I'm developing them now," Jonathan replies, his confidence uncharacteristically genuine rather than performative. "But healthcare isn't just numbers, it's absolutely numbers when you have shareholders," Marcus cuts in. "I'm calling an emergency board meeting to address this apparent crisis in leadership." The threat hangs in the air as Jonathan ends the call, knowing that for the first time in his career, he's prioritizing something beyond the bottom line. The realization is both terrifying and strangely liberating. His next stop is room 307, timing his visit when the twins are at school. Walter Parker looks significantly better than days ago. Some color returned to his face, though evidence of his ordeal remains in his tired eyes. Jonathan stands at the doorway, observing the man who raised his sister's children. Walter is sleeping, unaware of being watched by his late wife's brother. Family, the concept feels simultaneously foreign and deeply familiar to Jonathan. He sits quietly in the visitor's chair, studying Walter's face for traces of the twins. The room is personalized now, with children's drawings taped to the walls, a hand-knitted blanket across the bed, a small wooden carving of a bird that Jonathan recognizes as Walter's craftsmanship from photos he's seen. As he's about to leave, Walter's eyes open, focusing slowly on the unexpected visitor. "You're the hospital owner," Walter says, his voice raspy but strong. "Emma mentioned you, said you look sad when you think no one's watching." Jonathan is caught off guard by the observation. "How are you feeling, Mr. Parker?" "Better, thanks to that specialist you brought in." Walter's gaze is direct, assessing. "Though I'm curious why a businessman like you would take a special interest in an old carpenter's health." Before Jonathan can formulate a response that isn't quite a lie, but not yet the truth, his phone rings, Marcus again. He silences it, without looking. "I should let you rest," Jonathan says, rising from the chair. "Is there anything you need?" Walter watches him with eyes that miss nothing. "Just my grandchildren to be taken care of. Everything else is just details." The space is transformed. Bright afternoon light streams through clean windows, new comfortable furniture replaces the worn chairs, and shelves of art supplies and books line the walls. It's the kind of space Sarah would have created, though Jonathan hadn't consciously realized this until now. Emma pauses in her drawing, pencil hovering above paper, amber-flecked eyes studying Jonathan's face for his reaction. He sets down the colored pencil he'd been handing her, buying seconds to compose himself. "What makes you ask that?" he responds carefully. You look at Emma like you're seeing someone else, Ethan says, analytical beyond his years. And you keep asking questions about our mom. Plus, I saw you with Grandpa yesterday. You were looking at Mom's picture on his nightstand. Jonathan glances toward the nurse's station where the hospital administrator hovers anxiously, clearly uncomfortable with the owner's continued presence among the patients, especially these particular children. But it's Walter's watchful gaze from his wheelchair by the window that truly unnerves Jonathan, the older man observing this interaction with curious suspicion. Yes, Jonathan finally admits. I knew your mother a long time ago. Emma's eyes widen. Were you friends? The simplicity of the question belies its complexity. We were close once, before she moved to Cedar Grove. But not after, Ethan presses, protective instincts visibly engaged. Jonathan's phone rings, his personal lawyer calling about the trust fund he's secretly establishing for the twins. He silences it with an apologetic smile. The interruption gives him a moment to consider how much to reveal. People sometimes lose touch, he offers, even when they care about each other. Emma returns to her drawing, a detailed rendering of the sunroom, with Jonathan included among the figures, his presence already incorporated into her world. Mom had a box of pictures from before Cedar Grove. She wouldn't show us much, but there was one of her graduation. She looked really happy. She was, Jonathan says softly, memory surfacing of that proud day. Sarah, in her cap and gown, himself standing beside her, arm around her shoulders, before the inheritance dispute that would divide them. Walter wheels himself closer, joining the conversation. Emma, would you mind getting my water from the room, and perhaps ask the nurse for my medication? The girl nods, setting down her sketchbook and heading out, leaving the three males in a suddenly tense atmosphere. How long were you planning to observe before introducing yourself properly? Walter asks once Emma is out of earshot. His tone isn't accusatory, merely direct. Jonathan meets his gaze. You know who I am. I suspected from the moment I saw you. Sarah kept your picture all these years, said the twins should know their uncle, even if only through photographs. Ethan's eyes dart between them. Uncle? But our only uncle is Mom's brother who... Understanding dawns on his face, followed quickly by disbelief. You're him? Mom's brother Jonathan? Walter nods. It appears so. But you're rich, Ethan states flatly. We're not. The simple observation cuts deeper than any corporate boardroom critique Jonathan has ever faced. Why now? Walter asks, the real question beneath his calm exterior. After all this time? I didn't know, Jonathan admits, about the twins, about Sarah being here. We lost contact after a disagreement. I never knew she had children. Emma returns, immediately sensing the changed atmosphere. What's wrong? Jonathan looks to Walter, silently asking permission. The older man studies him for a long moment before nodding slightly. Emma, Jonathan begins, heart pounding uncharacteristically. I need to tell you something important, both of you, about why I've been spending time with you. Emma sits beside her brother, their shoulders touching in unconscious solidarity. Are you closing the hospital? No, Jonathan says quickly. It's not about the hospital. It's about your mother, Sarah. What about her? Ethan asks warily. Jonathan takes a deep breath. Sarah was my sister. I'm your uncle. The words hang in the air. Emma's pencil drops from her fingers. Ethan's posture stiffens defensively. That's not possible, Ethan challenges. Our uncle lives far away and never visits. Mom said he was too busy with his company to come see us. That was true, Jonathan acknowledges, the admission painful. Sarah and I had a falling out years ago before you were born. We stopped speaking to each other. I didn't know she had moved here or had children until I saw Emma's eyes. They're just like Sarah's. If you're really our uncle, Ethan demands, voice rising, where were you when Mom died? Where were you when Grandpa got sick? The accusation lands like a physical blow. Jonathan has no defense. I would have been there if I'd known, he says quietly. I would have been there for all of it. His phone rings again, the board calling an emergency meeting about his erratic behavior. He silences it without looking away from the twins' faces. Emma, who has remained silent, suddenly rises and walks to her backpack. She returns with a worn photo album, flipping to a specific page and holding it up. There, unmistakably, is a younger Jonathan with his arm around Sarah at her college graduation. "This is you," she says, not a question but a confirmation. "Yes." She studies his face with Sarah's thoughtful gaze, looking for resemblance, for truth, for connection. "Why are you telling us now?" she finally asks. "Because you deserve to know the truth," Jonathan answers simply, "and because I'd like the chance to know you both, if you'll let me." Walter wheels forward, placing a steadying hand on Emma's shoulder. "Your mother always believed in second chances," he says gently, "even for brothers who lost their way." 3 days have passed since the initial revelation. Walter's condition has improved enough for him to be moved out of intensive monitoring, though he remains weak. Dr. Martin stands in the doorway, ostensibly checking medical charts, but clearly observing the family dynamics with professional interest. "You already told us you're our uncle," Ethan points out, still maintaining his protective distance. He sits on the edge of Walter's bed, positioned between Jonathan and his grandfather, as if ready to defend both sides if necessary. Emma sits cross-legged in the room's only comfortable chair, their mother's photo album open in her lap. She's been studying it intently since learning Jonathan's identity, searching for connections and clues to their family history. "Yes, but there's more to the story," Jonathan says, choosing his words carefully. "About why your mother and I lost touch, and why I wasn't part of your lives until now." Walter nods encouragingly. These past days have brought several private conversations between the two men, difficult, honest discussions about Sarah, about responsibility, about the past and potential future. Jonathan pulls out his phone, showing them photos Rebecca recovered from storage. "Your mother and I were very close as children. I was 4 years older, so I always looked out for her." He shows them pictures of 2 children playing by a lake, a teenage Jonathan, helping a young Sarah with a science project, holidays and birthdays from a comfortable, but not extravagant upbringing. "If you were so close, what happened?" Emma asks softly, her natural empathy evident. Jonathan's phone rings, a board member calling about the emergency meeting he's been ignoring. He silences it with an apologetic smile. "Our parents died when Sarah was in art school," Jonathan explains. "They left us equal shares in the family business, a small technology company. I wanted to expand aggressively, take risks. Sarah wanted to keep it smaller, focused on the original mission. We argued." The simplification of their complex disagreement feels inadequate, but appropriate for the twins' age. "About money," Ethan says flatly, his perception cutting to the heart of the matter. "About values," Jonathan corrects gently. "I thought bigger was better. Sarah believed some things were more important than profit." He smiles sadly. "She was right, as usual." Emma traces her finger over a photo of Sarah. "So you stopped talking to each other?" "We both said things we shouldn't have," Jonathan admits. "I accused her of not being committed to our parents' legacy. She said I'd forgotten what really mattered to them. The last time we spoke, she told me she was moving away to find a life with meaning. I was too proud to call her, and then..." He gestures helplessly. "Years passed." "If you're really our uncle," Ethan challenges, his voice gaining strength, "where were you when Mom died? Where were you when Grandpa got sick? We could have lost our home if the neighbors hadn't helped with bills." The accusation hangs in the air, harsh but justified. Walter winces but doesn't intervene, allowing the boy his honest reaction. "I didn't know," Jonathan says simply. "After your mother left, I threw myself into building the business. I checked occasionally to make sure Sarah's share payments were being deposited, but she never cashed them. I told myself she was fine, just stubborn." The admission of his negligence costs him, but he continues. "I didn't know she had married, had children, or..." His voice catches. "Or that she had passed away. If I had known about you, I would have been here immediately." "But you never looked for her," Emma observes, not accusatory but sad. "No," Jonathan acknowledges. "That was my biggest mistake." Ethan stands abruptly, pacing the small room. "So now you show up because you happened to buy our hospital, and suddenly you want to be family? Where were you when we needed new shoes for school? Or when Emma needed braces, but we couldn't afford them?" Jonathan absorbs the justified anger. I can't change the past, Ethan. I wish I could, but I'm here now, and I want to help, if you'll let me. We don't need your money, Ethan declares, though the financial struggles evident in their worn clothes and Walter's medical bills suggest otherwise. It's not about money, Jonathan says carefully. It's about family. You're Sarah's children. That makes you important to me regardless of anything else. Emma has been quietly studying Jonathan's face throughout this exchange. You have Mom's smile, she finally says. Not the regular one, but the sad one she had sometimes when she thought we weren't looking. The observation, so insightful from a 9-year-old, momentarily silences the room. Walter clears his throat, emotion evident in his voice. Your mother believed people could change, Emma. She never gave up on anyone, including her stubborn brother. Jonathan meets Walter's gaze with silent gratitude, then turns back to the twins. I don't expect to become your uncle overnight. I just want a chance to know you, to be part of your lives in whatever way you're comfortable with. Ethan remains skeptical, arms crossed, but Emma slides from her chair and approaches Jonathan. From her pocket, she withdraws a folded paper and hands it to him, a detailed drawing of Jonathan as she'd observed him these past days, sitting in the sunroom, talking with hospital staff, watching them when he thought no one noticed. The rendering captures not just his appearance, but something of his essence, the loneliness behind the success. You can keep it, she offers softly. I have lots of drawings. This simple gesture, so like Sarah's way of reaching out, brings unexpected emotion to Jonathan's throat. Thank you, he manages, carefully folding the drawing into his pocket. Ethan watches this exchange, his expression softening fractionally. He doesn't offer acceptance, but his rigid stance relaxes slightly. Grandpa says you've been paying for his special doctor. Yes. Why? Because that's what family does, Jonathan answers simply. They take care of each other. Walter looks up from his heart-healthy oatmeal, eyebrows raised at the intrusion. A week has passed since Jonathan's revelation to the twins, and while Ethan maintains cautious distance, Emma has embraced her new uncle with hesitant optimism. Walter himself has become an unexpected ally, sharing stories of Sarah's life in Cedar Grove that fill crucial gaps in Jonathan's understanding of his sister's chosen path. I'm in the middle of something, Marcus, Jonathan replies, gesturing apologetically to Walter. Can this wait? It absolutely cannot, Marcus insists, his corporate polish failing to mask growing frustration. The board convenes in 3 hours. Your presence is required, virtually, at minimum. Jonathan excuses himself to the farmhouse porch, where a worn swing creaks gently in the morning breeze. The property, while lovingly maintained, shows clear signs of financial strain. Patched roof shingles, a truck well past its prime parked in the gravel driveway, garden tools mended rather than replaced. The quarterly report shows unauthorized expenditures exceeding $2 million at Cedar Grove Memorial. Marcus begins without preamble. New equipment, specialist salaries, facility renovations, none approved through proper channels. I approved them, Jonathan states calmly. That's precisely the problem. The board has prepared documentation for a temporary leave of absence, citing personal issues affecting your judgment. Jonathan gazes across the property to where Emma sits beneath an apple tree, sketchbook in lap, occasionally glancing toward the house as if ensuring her uncle hasn't disappeared. The child's tentative attachment to him, so fragile yet meaningful, clarifies something that's been shifting within him for days. I'll attend the meeting, he agrees finally, but I'll be presenting an alternative proposal. After ending the call, Jonathan returns to the kitchen where Walter studies him with knowing eyes. Trouble at the office? The older man asks wryly. Nothing unexpected, Jonathan replies, resuming his seat. My board doesn't understand my recent priorities. Walter nods, pushing away his half-finished breakfast. You know, when Sarah first moved here, people couldn't understand why a talented artist with her education would choose a small town like Cedar Grove. But she saw something worth investing in. The community, the simplicity, the chance to make a direct difference. The parallel isn't lost on Jonathan. The twins' financial situation, he begins carefully, the medical bills, this property, We manage, Walter interrupts with quiet dignity. The neighbors help when things get tight. That's how it works here. But the mortgage payments, Emma's braces that Ethan mentioned. Walter sighs, his pride visibly warring with practical concerns. The medical bills depleted our savings. The bank's been patient, but... He gestures vaguely at a stack of letters on the counter, their official logos visible. Before Jonathan can respond, the screen door slams as Ethan enters, backpack slung over one shoulder. His wariness toward Jonathan has softened marginally, but remains evident in his guarded posture. "Grandpa, Mrs. Wilson needs to know if you're still helping with the town festival setup since you're home now," he announces, deliberately excluding Jonathan from the conversation. "Tell her I'll be there, just moving a bit slower," Walter assures him. "Perhaps your uncle could help as well." Ethan's expression closes. "We've managed without him for 9 years." The statement lands heavily, but Jonathan accepts it as deserved. "I'd like to help, if permitted," he says mildly. "I'm fairly good with tools." Ethan looks skeptical, but shrugs noncommittally before heading outside again. Through the window, Jonathan watches the boy cross to the apple tree where he drops down beside his sister, their heads bending together in conversation that occasionally includes glances toward the house. "He'll come around," Walter says, following Jonathan's gaze. Ethan processes things differently than Emma. She leads with her heart. He needs time to think things through, like Sarah and you, in that way. The observation startles Jonathan. "I never thought of Sarah and myself as similar." "More than you realized," Walter assures him, stubborn, principled, fiercely protective of those you care about. Just different applications of the same traits. 3 hours later, Jonathan sits in Walter's small office, a converted mudroom with a simple desk and outdated computer. The corporate world seems impossibly distant as he connects to the emergency board meeting, the faces of his executive team appearing on screen with expressions ranging from concern to barely disguised ambition. "Jonathan, we've reviewed the situation," begins Elaine Voss, the most senior board member. "The numbers from Cedar Grove are alarming. Expenses up 340% with no corresponding revenue increase. Your personal involvement with specific patients raises ethical questions. The board recommends immediate leadership reassignment until these issues are resolved." "I appreciate your concern," Jonathan replies with unexpected calm, "but I'll be presenting an alternative approach." For the next 20 minutes, he outlines a revolutionary rural healthcare model, using Cedar Grove as a pilot program combining cutting-edge telemedicine, specialist rotation programs, preventative care initiatives, and community integration that could transform their approach to small market acquisitions. "This isn't just charity," he concludes. "It's innovation. Rural communities represent an underserved market with unique challenges our urban models can't address. Cedar Grove can become our laboratory for solutions we sell nationwide." Marcus scoffs visibly. "This sudden interest in rural healthcare wouldn't happen to coincide with your discovery of certain personal connections in Cedar Grove?" The insinuation hangs in the air. Jonathan considers his response carefully, aware that his professional reputation and the hospital's future hang in the balance. "You're right, Marcus," he acknowledges, surprising everyone. "My perspective has changed because I've seen firsthand what this hospital means to real people, including family I didn't know I had until recently. But good business decisions often come from personal insights. The question isn't why I'm proposing this change, but whether it has merit." The debate grows heated, with factions forming among the board members. When the ultimatum finally comes, proceed with the original cost-cutting plan or step down as CEO, Jonathan doesn't hesitate. "I'll take a leave of absence," he announces. "Caroline is more than capable as interim CEO. But I'm establishing the Sarah Parker Foundation effective immediately with my personal funds to implement the pilot program at Cedar Grove Memorial. As majority shareholder, I trust the board will support this initiative." The meeting ends in stunned silence from his executives. Jonathan closes the laptop with a strange sense of liberation, gazing out the small window to where the twins are now helping Walter tend the garden, their movements careful around their grandfather's still recovering strength. "I'm not asking for anything," Jonathan tells them later that evening as they sit on the porch watching fireflies emerge in the gathering dusk. "But I'd like the chance to be part of your lives, if you're willing." Walter considers him thoughtfully, then nods toward the house. "The spare bedroom needs fresh sheets, but it's yours for as long as you need. just until you figure out your next move. Jonathan looks up from his laptop where he's been reviewing proposals for the Sarah Parker Memorial Wing, now under construction at the hospital, visible on the hill in the distance. The past month has witnessed rapid changes, professionally as he navigates his leave of absence, and personally as he cautiously integrates into the family's rhythms. Fractions or percentages, he asks, sliding into the chair beside Ethan. Their relationship, once defined by the boy's wariness, has evolved through shared interests neither initially recognized, mathematics, engineering puzzles, and a mutual love for the strategy games Jonathan has gradually introduced. Percentages, Ethan confirms, pushing over a worksheet. Mrs. Collins says I need to show my work, but I can do most of it in my head. Just like your mother, Jonathan observes. Sarah could calculate tips faster than anyone I knew. Ethan absorbs this comparison with quiet satisfaction. These small connections to his mother, traits and talents inherited, have become precious to both twins as Jonathan shares memories from Sarah's childhood and teenage years. Outside, Emma works in the memorial garden they've planted together, a small plot dedicated to Sarah, flourishing with her favorite flowers. The girl's artistic talents have blossomed with proper supplies and encouragement, her sketchbooks now filled with increasingly sophisticated renderings of their evolving family life. The screen door opens as Rebecca, Jonathan's assistant, enters carrying a banker's box. Unlike her first visit, when she arrived in full corporate armor, expecting a brief provincial interruption to Jonathan's career, she now moves comfortably in the farmhouse, having become an unexpected ally in bridging his two worlds. The last of your requested items, plus the mail from your apartment, she announces, setting down the box. Also, Doctor, Martin called, the Foundation Board approved the pediatric telehealth program. Thanks, Rebecca. Jonathan nods, noting how seamlessly she's adapted to his transformed priorities. Any word from Marcus? Still sending daily urgent reports requiring your immediate return, she confirms with a wry smile. Caroline is handling everything beautifully, which only makes him more anxious. Ethan listens to this exchange with studied casualness while completing his homework. The corporate machinations of his uncle's world fascinate him, though he pretends indifference. Later that afternoon, Jonathan helps Walter in the workshop behind the house, a space where the older man's carpentry skills are gradually returning as his strength rebuilds. They work in companionable silence, crafting a display case for Emma's growing collection of art awards from school competitions. You've adjusted more easily than I expected, Walter observes, carefully sanding a corner joint. From penthouse to farmhouse is quite a transition. Jonathan considers this as he measures a piece of glass. It feels right somehow, like finding something I didn't know was missing. Walter nods, understanding evident in his expression. Sarah felt the same way when she moved here, said Cedar Grove had emotional authenticity her previous life lacked. The phrase resonates. Jonathan's sleek, achievement-filled existence before Cedar Grove suddenly seems hollow in comparison to these simple, meaningful days, helping with homework, attending Ethan's baseball games, driving Emma to art classes, sharing evening meals around the kitchen table, where conversation and laughter flow naturally. He's purchased a small house nearby, a modest but charming property within walking distance of the farmhouse, but finds himself spending most evenings with the Parkers, reluctant to return to empty rooms however close by. The next morning brings crisis, an urgent call from Caroline about a potential hostile takeover attempt orchestrated by Marcus. The board demands Jonathan's immediate return to headquarters to address investor concerns. I have to go back to the city, he tells the twins over breakfast, watching their expressions carefully. Just for a few days to handle a work situation. Emma's face falls immediately. But you promised to come to my art show tomorrow. And my championship game is Saturday, Ethan adds, his casual tone belied by the tension in his shoulders. Their reactions, the fear that he won't return, the expectation of disappointment, reveal how important he's become in their lives, despite the brevity of their relationship. Jonathan recognizes the moment's significance with sudden clarity. Pack your overnight bags, he decides. We'll all go, Grandpa too, if he feels up to it. I'll handle the business, then we'll do something special in the city together. The twins exchange surprised glances, hope replacing apprehension. Walter watches thoughtfully from the doorway. You sure that's wise? he asks when the children rush upstairs to pack. Your corporate world and this family life you're building, they're pretty different worlds. They don't have to be, Jonathan replies with newfound conviction. He resolves the corporate crisis remotely, refusing to leave Cedar Grove despite his board's pressure. Through video conferences and late-night calls, he manages to stabilize the situation while keeping his promise to attend Emma's art show and Ethan's championship game. The message to his board is clear. His priorities have fundamentally shifted. He formally transfers leadership to Caroline, his trusted COO, announcing his intention to focus on the hospital foundation and regional healthcare innovation. You're really staying, Ethan observes one evening, finding Jonathan on the porch after a foundation meeting. The statement holds a question beneath its surface. I am, Jonathan confirms. Cedar Grove has become home. You and Emma and Grandpa have become home. Ethan absorbs this, his natural skepticism warring with growing trust. Mom would have liked that, having you back in her life. I think she would, Jonathan agrees quietly, though I wish it hadn't taken me so long to find my way here. That weekend, Jonathan helps the twins plant sunflowers along the fence line of the memorial garden, telling them stories about Sarah as a child, her determination to grow the tallest sunflower in the neighborhood, her competitive streak that matched his own. As they work together in the rich earth, Emma casually mentions plans for next summer, including Jonathan naturally in their future. The simple inclusion, unforced, unquestioned, feels like the most significant achievement of his life. That night, as the fireflies rise and the twins chase them across the yard, Walter joins Jonathan on the porch steps. You've found your place, the older man observes. Jonathan watches Emma capture a firefly, calling excitedly for Ethan to see its glow. Not the place I expected, he admits, but exactly where I need to be. The Parker farmhouse brims with celebration, decorated with streamers and balloons for the twins' 10th birthday. Through the window, the renovated and expanded hospital stands proudly on the hill, its new wing gleaming in the summer sunset. 6 months have transformed both the medical facility and the man who now divides his time between healthcare innovation and family responsibilities. Walter, healthier and more vigorous than he's been in years, presides over the gathering from his favorite armchair. His eyes hold a quiet satisfaction as he surveys the scene. His grandchildren surrounded by friends, neighbors, and hospital staff who have become an extended family. Make a wish, calls Mary from the diner, who has supplied enough food to feed half the town. Emma and Ethan exchange their twin telepathy glance before closing their eyes with identical expressions of concentration. Jonathan recognizes the look, the same focused determination Sarah showed when setting her mind to something important. What did you wish for? Jonathan asks as they cut the cake, a magnificent creation decorated with baseball equipment on one side and art supplies on the other. Can't tell, Emma replies, grinning, or it won't come true. That's the rule. Though technically, Ethan adds with the logical precision Jonathan has come to cherish, most of our wishes from last year actually happened, and we told Grandpa those. Jonathan laughs, passing plates to waiting guests. His transformation is evident not just in his casual clothes and relaxed posture, but in the easy way he navigates the crowded farmhouse kitchen, knowing where every utensil belongs, which guests prefer which beverages, which of Emma's school friends are vegetarian. Dr. Martin approaches, now a friend, as well as the foundation's co-director. The first telehealth consults start next week, she reports. 3 rural hospitals have already inquired about implementing our model. We'll need to schedule site visits, Jonathan nods, after Ethan's science camp and Emma's art workshop, of course. The casual prioritization of family obligations over business, once unimaginable, now comes naturally. His daily schedule revolves around school drop-offs, baseball practices, and art classes, with foundation work fitted around these essential anchors, rather than the reverse. A sleek town car pulls into the driveway, drawing curious glances from the local guests. 3 members of Jonathan's corporate board emerge, looking somewhat uncomfortable in the rural setting, but carrying elegantly wrapped presents. You came, Jonathan greets them, genuinely pleased. The invitation had been extended as a bridge between his worlds, though he hadn't expected acceptance. We wanted to meet the famous Parker twins in person, Elaine Voss explains, the senior board member who initially opposed but eventually championed his rural healthcare initiative after seeing the preliminary results, and to discuss the tech center proposal in person. Business talk starts after cake, Walter announces firmly, appearing at Jonathan's side. Family rules. The corporate executives find themselves welcomed into the celebration, initially awkward, but gradually relaxing as the warmth of the community embraces them. Jonathan observes with satisfaction as Ethan earnestly explains his science project to the company's head of R&D, who appears genuinely impressed by the boy's insights. Later, as the party transitions to the yard where tables have been set up under string lights, Jonathan quietly slips inside to the family room. The wall that once held only Parker family photographs has been gradually expanded to include new images. Jonathan teaching Ethan to fish at the lake, Emma showing her uncle how to mix watercolors, all four of them at the hospital ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Sarah Parker Memorial Wing. Emma finds him there, studying the visual timeline of their evolving family. "I added something new," she says, pointing to a framed drawing recently hung in the center of the arrangement. The artwork, rendered with her growing skill, shows all four of them together. Not an actual scene, but a composition representing their connection. Jonathan recognizes the setting with a catch in his throat, the lake from Sarah's school mural, the childhood location where he and his sister had been happiest together. "It's what Mom would see if she was watching us now," Emma explains simply. "All of us together, like we're supposed to be." The insight, so profound from a child just turned 10, momentarily robs Jonathan of speech. He places a gentle hand on her shoulder, words unnecessary between them. Outside, as twilight deepens, Jonathan announces the Foundation's new tech initiative that will bring jobs to Cedar Grove, based at the hospital campus. The project combines his business expertise with his commitment to the community, creating opportunity where there had been struggle. "We're establishing a technology training center focused on healthcare innovations," he explains to the gathered townspeople. "Cedar Grove residents will have priority for both jobs and education programs." The announcement brings cheers and questions, excitement rippling through the crowd. Jonathan fields inquiries with the same focused attention he once reserved for billion-dollar deals, finding greater satisfaction in these modest but meaningful plans. As the party winds down, Jonathan finds himself on the porch swing beside Walter, watching fireflies rise over the yard, where a few children still play in the gathering dusk. "Sometimes the most valuable things can't be measured in dollars," Jonathan reflects, watching Ethan explain a firefly's bioluminescence to one of the board members' children with teacher-like patience. "I spent years chasing the wrong metrics." Walter nods, understanding in his weathered face. "Sarah would be proud of you, of all of us, finding our way together." In the quiet moment that follows, Jonathan experiences a sense of completion that no corporate achievement ever provided. The hospital on the hill, the community surrounding them, the family he nearly missed knowing. These represent his true legacy, more meaningful than any financial empire. As the last guests depart, the twins insist Jonathan stay for their birthday tradition, stargazing on a blanket in the backyard, counting shooting stars and making wishes on each one. Lying between them on the old quilt, pointing out constellations his father once taught him and Sarah, Jonathan realizes with perfect clarity that he is exactly where he belongs. Sometimes, he thinks, as Emma's head droops sleepily against his shoulder, and Ethan's questions about stellar distances grow increasingly mumbled, the most important journeys take us right back to where we should have been all along.